all the, issues that are external to us, whether it's, illegals coming into our country, or whether it is China, running a trade war against the United States, or economic war against the US, or whether it is, um, COVID viruses coming from China. All of those things are external. And when we get attacked by a foreigner, the tendency is for it to drive us together as an American people, like what happened after 9/11. It's like short-lived, but it drove, I think, the American people together. What's more dangerous than that is those things that divide us as an American people, that are by domestic enemies, right? When you take that oath, you take that oath that you're going to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I've taken that oath 3 times. Once as an Army soldier, once as a Navy civilian, once as a Marine Corps civilian. And I'm always struck by the fact that people tend to forget about that domestic enemy part. We have some major domestic enemies. And unfortunately, we have industrialized it with, the Department of Homeland Security and their constant spying on the American people, FBI spying on the American people, misusing Section 702 of FISA to spy on the American people. We know from a federal court that over 275,000 Americans were spied on illegally with a foreign intelligence surveillance tool. This is Section 702 of FISA. In order to find them. And most of them were related to January 6th, or there was also some that were related to George Floyd and BLM protests. So it's a bipartisan issue. People on both the right and the left should be very concerned. And, this is something that, to me, the reason it's one of the most important issues is because if we lose the Constitution, then what do we have? Another dictatorship in the world? Another oligarchy, another authoritarian government? I don't want to live like that. I very much can appreciate and can identify with Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. I do not want to live in a communist society or in an under authoritarian rule, and I will resist it with everything that is within me. I don't care what they threaten me with. It does not scare me. I will fight against it because I've taken that oath, and because it's a righteous cause, that righteous cause of liberty. I don't believe that God ever intended, for us to subjugate ourselves, to to an illegal government, to a government that is corrupt. I think that, it is our duty to throw off that kind of corruption, that kind of corrupt government. And so that is why one of the main issues that I want to deal with is I think we need an Article 1 congressional tribunal to be created with the sole purpose of rooting out those elements within our federal agencies, to include the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, all of the intelligence community, the DOJ, to root out all of those who've been involved in deprivation of rights under color of law. Anybody who has used their position of power to violate the rights of the people, they need to be punished. And it's not enough to just simply say that's illegal and shame on you. No, these people need to be punished, and judges who are involved in that, they need to be impeached. And so what a Article 1 tribunal allows for, it allows for Congress to make temporary appointments of judges to address agency issues. The fact is, the FBI is never going to investigate themselves. The DOJ is never going to indict themselves. They've already proven this. 275,000 Americans illegally spied on. How many of the FBI agents who were involved in illegally spying on Americans, how many of them have gone to jail for deprivation of rights under color of law? I don't know one. So these are the kinds of things, to me, that the reason that is so dangerous is because we're sitting at a point now, and we're beginning now to see that this corruption is not only infected our state legislature, it's not only our federal legislature, it's not only infected the executive branch, right, with all of the deep state, which are your administrative state of people who who seem to stay in power, the SESs and the GS-15s that stay in power long after, one president leaves and a new one comes in, and they continue to basically run their agenda. But it's also made its way into our courts. And that is perfectly exemplified by this ruling that happened in Colorado, where you have 4 appointed judges. These are not even elected judges, they're appointed, that they're going to decide to interfere with the election, in the primary, that they're going to remove President Trump off the ballot. And for what? Claiming the 14th Amendment, which, by the way, the 14th Amendment, which has to do with the Insurrection Act, not a single person related to January 6th has been charged or indicted or, charged or convicted under the Insurrection Act. Not one. So what does that tell you? So Trump hasn't been indicted. He hasn't been charged with that. He was, there was a mock trial, if you will, of fake, outrage, faux outrage by the left in Congress to try to impeach him for it, but they didn't succeed. And so how this is not double jeopardy by, number one, going after Trump for something that he's already been acquitted of. But number two, how are they not the judge, jury, executioner, investigator, grand jury, and prosecutor in this matter when they're going to just carte blanche make that decision to remove Trump from the ballot? This is illegal. It is unconstitutional. It is, I would say, deprivation of rights under color of law, because they're using their power that they have to basically judge the law, and they are using it to disenfranchise basically half the country, because what they do there could very well have an impact on the rest of the country. And we're already seeing other states like California's lieutenant governor talking about it. And by the way, for the record, I'm not for removing Biden off of the ballot either. I think that would be an illegal action, and I think it would just lead to further disunity and division amongst Americans.
Not to mention the fact that we don't need to do it anyway.
No, he's going to lose. He's going to lose because the man is incompetent. And I think even people on the left, look, I've had even longtime Democrat liberal friends of mine admit that they see Biden as a major liability, and I think they're going to get rid of him. He probably won't even be on the ballot. We don't know. But the fact is these efforts by some Republicans to create legislation to remove him is a big mistake on their part. I really do think they need to basically stick to the principles. And the principles are that we are we have a democratic form of government. We have a constitutional republic where the people elect their leaders. Certainly not the judges, and definitely not members of Congress. They should not be electing them. Neither should, these judges. And so that's selection. That's not an election. And I oppose that. And so I just published a scathing article that I put out there about these judges, and also calling out, not just the judges, but calling out, all of the spheres of influence in our culture, whether it's the churches. Where are they on this? Why are they not speaking out against this injustice? Do they think that, that it doesn't matter and that they shouldn't say, or are they just, afraid of losing their 501c3 tax-free status? Honestly, I'm appalled that there are not more Christians standing up against just the ungodliness in our country right now that is being perpetrated by many in our own government. But then you also have all of the intellectuals and all of the, academics that are supposed experts in the Constitution. Where are they? Where's their voice on this matter? Why are they not speaking out about it? Is it because they're afraid to lose their cushy little positions of power, in their universities? What about our representatives? What does that word even mean anymore? Why is Congress not acting, to deal with this matter? Why are they not impeaching these judges? Why are they not, going on? Where's the Supreme Court on this? Why have they taken so long to act on this? The longer they wait, the more other states that are run by liberals are going to try to do this same thing. And before they know it, they're going to be overwhelmed with cases that they're going to have to deal with. Supreme Court needs to act, and they need to act swiftly to basically squash this whole thing. And then honestly, these judges need to be impeached, and they need to be brought up on federal charges for election interference and for deprivation of rights under color of law. The last group of people that I want to mention that I think is clearly we've got a major problem with, and that's the media. The fourth estate. What does that even mean anymore? They're supposed to be the guardians of the realm, right? They're supposed to the journalists, in the media and the newspapers, they're supposed to basically be, contributing to protecting our government's, our
Rights of the people,
constitution,
the rights of the
the
people, as
rights of the
opposed
people.
to the
That's
rights
right.
of the ultra
That's
rich.
right. But that's not what they're doing anymore. We know now through things like the Twitter files and the CTIL files and the Facebook files that the federal government has been influencing and paying for access to be able to tell them what stories to run and what stories not to run. So basically, our media today is no different than the British, what they call them, the gazetteers, that basically were the propagandists for the British government during the American Revolution. Thomas Jefferson warned about them, talking about how they were basically spreading lies, saying that America, was under an anarchy. They pushed us into the American Revolution. They drove us there. In fact, Massachusetts was an isolated incident. It was a rebellion without no doubt. It was certainly a riot, but it was not, there was no national insurrection at that time. There was no, anarchy going on. You still had good governance that was happening in the colonies, but the British government decided to spread lies, to call it an insurrection. Sound familiar? They called it anarchy. They then put troops and posted them in the homes of people, kind of like, when I'm in my own home and I'm on my phone or I'm on my computer and the government is in my home, on my phone, on my computer, spying on me. How is that any different? So we are facing very similar circumstances, to what American early colonists, were facing, against a corrupt and tyrannical government over in England, except this time it's on our own shores. And it is the current administration and the administrative state that is behind it. And so if the Congress, if they don't grow a spine soon and start defunding all of these agencies that are involved in violating our Constitution, then I will have no choice but to believe that they are either compromised by blackmail or they are part of, the administrative state, part of the deep state. We have to hold these people accountable, absolutely, because it will ultimately lead to our own destruction if we don't. Because I don't know what other thing that we can do. If we lose our faith in the courts, we lose our faith in, our federal government, the legislative branch, and if people don't vote because they don't believe elections matter. If all of these things happen, you're going to have somebody who's going to go over the edge, and they're going to feel like they've got nothing to lose, and you're going to see a new revolution sparked. And that's not good for anyone, because ultimately it will lead to bloodshed. And it will be, without any doubt, it will be Thomas Jefferson's quote when he said that the tree of liberty from time to time must be refreshed by the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is its only natural manure. That I don't want to see that in my lifetime. So far, we've been able to hold off that for 200 years, but they're pushing really hard to kind of get us into, a situation like that. And if anybody
I've got a
who
couple
doesn't
of
believe,
questions for you.
sure,
Um, Beth and I were told last Sunday by our pastor that Trump can't save you, only Jesus can, which is of course true, but the context he put it in was like, don't don't put your energy into the election, and it really made me angry.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was talking about when I mentioned about the churches and they're basically their responsibility, to be a beacon of truth and to be a light in this dark world. Um, the church has largely abdicated its role in society. They no longer admonish, sinners and admonish those that are doing things wrongly. They say, "Oh, everything's okay. What's good for you is good for you. What's good for me is good for me." You know, they keep it to just within the four walls of the church, and they say, "Okay, if you're in this church, you got to, live, according to God." But in some cases, they don't even do that when they allow for, gay ministers and they allow for, clear violations of, the Word of God. But what we're seeing, this apathy, this, I understand a pastor saying something to the effect of that, look, um, make sure that your hope is in Jesus Christ. Make sure your hope is in God and that you're seeking God. But when they attack Trump and they say, oh, Trump is a, don't put your faith in Trump. Don't, it is, to me, it's like a slap in the face. What they're saying is, basically that we should just sit by idly and do nothing.
Right.
Well, the scriptures are very clear, and it says that faith without works is dead. So if you are somebody who claims to be faithful, claims to be somebody, that is doing the right thing, but you're not doing anything, and all you're doing is praying, what use is that? That's no use to God. Prayer is important. What prayer is basically, I look at it like this. In Proverbs, it says, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. It doesn't say sit around and wait for God to tell you what to do. No, it says in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. Just like when I went to work for the FBI, I had no idea I was going to end up becoming a whistleblower. But God directed my path to that job. And then when I decided to blow the whistle, I did it. And I prayed and I asked God for his help in it, and he helped me. We need to ask God for help, because if we think that we're going to solve this problem on our own, we are fooling ourselves. It is not going to be man that solves this problem on his own. But it's also not going to be God that solves this problem without us putting in our effort. We have to be, willing and committed to do the right thing. And there's another scripture that actually says that he that knows the good that he ought to do and chooses not to do it, it is sin for him. So if we're not doing good that we know that we should be doing, like voting, or speaking out against injustice and things like that, then we are part of the problem. That is just in of itself, that is sin as well.
Okay, I've
So
got some other questions.
yeah.
We've gone almost, we're coming up on 2 hours, so let's we need to wrap it up. But why do you think that Section 702 of FISA uh, received congressional approval for refunding last month?
So I have a theory, and it is a theory, I'll make that clear, that there are a number of people in Congress that are already compromised by blackmail. There have been some that have already spoken about this. There was recently a senator that said that they have you'll be out of town and they'll send some girl up to your room, and then they get you at a weak moment and they get these pictures on you, and next thing you know, you're down there getting ready to vote for something, and somebody walks up to you and says, you might want to, do you remember being in this place at this time with this girl? You may not want to vote on that way.
Right.
So I'm pretty certain, knowing what I know about Section 702 and how much data and how much digital information you can find on somebody, I'm pretty certain that they probably have dirt on a lot of people. It's like J. Edgar Hoover on steroids.
Right.
And so they've gone to these people and they've told them, you're going to vote for this thing or we're going to expose you. So That is my assumption. I have to assume that. It's either that or they're complete fools because they are giving the power to these intelligence, community to basically spy on them by continuing to authorize this tool. And for a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act tool, why in the world is it needed by the FBI, a domestic agency? Why?
Right.
Maybe
Why
CIA,
do we need
maybe
the CIA as a domestic agency?
no, they shouldn't be doing anything domestically. CIA, DIA, Defense Department, I could see having the need for a tool like that, when we're looking at terrorists abroad or whatever, but we don't need that here. We have a court, we have a way of doing, basically, we have a constitution that we have to follow. So to me, that's the other thing is that every single one of the members of Congress that voted for that thing, they've all violated their oath of office, every single one of them.
Okay.
So unfortunately, the people have got to wake up and they got to realize that, and they've got to vote these people out.
Got another question. So right at the very first, I was very pleased to hear you use the word dead drop, because I've said in many reports in this year that the Penn Biden Center was nothing but a sophisticated new form of dead drop, because
Yeah.
Chinese guys had key access to individual offices where things could be put in the office. Then the Chinese guy comes in, because always
Yeah, they were in the same building.
the key
They
problem with
foreign
the dead
adversaries
drop
in the same
is
building.
try to catch the guy who's dropping the intelligence information right at the point he drops it, and that's the whole purpose of a dead drop, to avoid that. And this just was a whole new level of sophistication of a dead drop.
Yeah. It's interesting. Uh, when Comer first came out and started speaking about Biden's money laundering issues and all of the Chinese money laundering that was going on through various charities and all of that, it sounded awfully familiar. In fact, um, I remember he mentioned a company that sounded awfully familiar, like it was one of the same companies that was listed that in the documents that I turned in on Hillary Clinton. And so I'm very curious, to if I get into Congress, I hope that I'll get on a committee like the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence so that I can actually access the documents that I turned in and go through and review them, because I have a feeling that there's like an infrastructure for corruption, and that infrastructure involves certain charities, it involves certain banks, it involves certain shell corporations, and if they didn't clean up any of those from Hillary Clinton, I guarantee you they're still in use, being used by others in Congress. I mean, look at what happened with this whole FTX thing. All this money we send, right? $13 billion this year, $12 billion last year to the Ukraine. And then all of a sudden there's all this money coming back through FTX going into the accounts of all of these, politicians running for office, including my own, including Republicans. This system is corrupt, and it needs to be absolutely exposed. One of the promises that I've made, Bill, is that I will meet with any lobbyist that needs to meet with me, because there may be important issues that they have to talk about that affect West Virginia. But at the end of the day, on one condition only, and that is that the conversation will be recorded and be made public immediately. I will not have any secret meetings with lobbyists at all. I think that that's corrupt, that happens at all, because there's money involved. Anytime money's involved, the people need to know everything that's going on. So,
Well, I wholeheartedly endorse your candidacy, and we haven't caught up like this for quite a while. So there was
yeah.
a big download of new information that you hadn't transmitted to me before, and I'm very impressed by what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so I wish you well. I hope
Thank
everything
you.
goes well.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that coming from you. You've been a longtime friend, and it's been a while. We haven't caught up in a while, and I'm glad that we're able to do this, because I want to do this more often with you.
Okay.
We had we had an amazing journey, you know, that we've been bonded for life on.
Yeah, that's what fear will do to you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm still reporting from just outside the citadel of world freedom. Good day.